Hi, Denny. Thanks so much for joining us. It's a real pleasure to have you today with us. It's the students already know it's sort of a tradition. And as in previous years, we've recorded a couple of weeks ago an interview. The students had a chance to review it and actually send some questions in advance. And so what we're going to do is just use this time to have a chat, I would say. So before we do that, I thought you might want to say just a quick hello to everyone, and maybe, although they kind of met you in the interview, you'll have a chance to introduce yourself again. So let's do that first.
Hello, everyone. I am Denny Vrandečić. Thank you so much for having me, for having the opportunity to hear your questions and to chat with you. Looking very much forward to it. Thank you for the invitation, Shani.
Oh, thank you again for doing it. And I know it's quite early, so a special thank you for waking up so early to actually meet the students. I want to begin with asking if the students actually, if there's anyone who actually wants to ask themselves, because many students wrote me that they want me to ask on their behalf, but if there's anyone here who actually want to unmute and ask themselves, that would be wonderful. I also remind you that please open your cameras. Okay, so let's see if we have a brave volunteer to actually ask themselves. Denny won't bite. I'm telling you, he's a really nice guy. Okay, so let's start off, and I'll start off by asking on behalf of some people, and we'll see how that goes. So there's a question from Sama, who actually wanted to know a bit more about how you came up with the idea for Wikidata. Was it your idea alone, or was it something that you worked on with some other folks who helped? So just a bit of background.
It was not my idea alone. So in 2005, I was a PhD student at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, and I just joined the year before. Another colleague also just joined at that time, Markus Krötsch, and there was another colleague, Max Völkel. We were all working on. We were all PhD students in that area. Max Völkel was working on semantic wikis, which I had no idea what that would mean. And he was also trying to figure it out. And Markus was a Wikipedian, and we bonded over that. I also was already a Wikipedian for a year or two by that time. And then came the call for papers for Wikimania, for the very, very first Wikimania. Wikimania is an annual meeting of Wikipedians and other Wikimedia project community members from all over the world. And it was the very first one to be made in Frankfurt in Germany. And this was very close to Karlsruhe. So it's like, oh, there's going to be an inexpensive trip to a conference. And so I went to Markus and Max and asked if they would be interested in submitting something to Wikimania. And we had first no idea what that would be. We were working the area of the semantic web, and there was Wikipedia. And so we thought, well, let's write a paper about how to combine semantic web ideas into Wikipedia and how to make it useful. And we had no idea what that would actually mean, but we really wanted to go to the conference. So we were just sitting down and brainstorming for a few weeks. And at the end of that, we came up with the idea of a semantic Wikipedia, where the links in the Wikipedia would be annotated with their meaning. So this is not yet what Wikidata became, because the main difference is that it would be annotating every single Wikipedia with semantic web like annotations. So we would have 300 separate knowledge graphs basically in every language one. And it was a few years later that Eric Möller, who was then the deputy director at the Wikimedia Foundation, he suggested that we should, instead of having many different Wikipedias being all with a knowledge graph, we should have a single knowledge graph where we put all the data in from in all the languages. And I wasn't actually very convinced by that idea at first at all. I thought it would have disadvantages because it would what was it? Because it would potentially decrease the diversity in Wikipedia, because now we all would be working on one knowledge graph, so the different language communities wouldn't be able to express themselves, etc., etc. But in the end, Eric's idea convinced me. So we started actually a research project, Render, to figure out whether it would actually lead to reduction in diversity. What would be the positive and negative side effects of having one Wikidata instead of having many knowledge graphs? And in the end, the results were actually pretty promising. We made the Wikidata data model able to express actually different points of views, which was a huge advantage. And we realized that there was actually no need to have Wikipedia in all of the different languages. Sorry, have a knowledge graph in all of the different languages. And so we went for a single Wikidata, and this developed only like in 2009, 2010, the idea that we would then use one Wikidata. So there were, and obviously we had conversations since the very first Wikimania. Every single Wikimania we're presenting the concept, and we got a lot of input from a lot of Wikipedians, and we're developing and refining the idea the whole time. And you can actually follow that up with the papers from the time and see how it develops and how it changes. But in the end, there were a lot of people contributing to the concept and how it shaped out in the end.
Thanks, Denny. That's a great way to, I guess, start off this discussion. And the second question is from Elad. Elad, are you sure that you don't want to ask yourself? Okay. Then Elad wants to know, do you think there will come a day where we can completely trust the content on Wikipedia thanks to what's happening on Wikidata?
The term completely trust is very strong. I don't think there will ever come the day that we can completely trust any one source, whether be it Wikipedia, whether be it another encyclopedia, whether be it whatever it is. I don't think I would be surprised if we found us in a situation where we would completely trust any single source in the world. There will always be potentials for mistakes, for errors, for biases, and so on. And we will always have to be mindful and to hone our capability to deal with the different medias that we are talking with, that we are accessing, that we are reading, that we are working with. It's no different for Wikipedia or Wikidata. I do expect Wikipedia and Wikidata to become increasingly more trustworthy. It is already in a very, very good space. There's not that many sources on the web that I trust as much as I trust Wikipedia. But I expect this to indeed further grow. But I don't expect us to ever reach a point that I would confidently say we can completely trust Wikipedia, Wikidata, or as said, any other source on the web. Does this make sense, or did I answer the wrong question?
No, you answered, I think, right, Elad? Yes. Okay. Maybe just a note for our international listeners later on, because this part of our class will be shared later on for the international audience. So just noting that Denny is joining us really wrapping up the second module of our academic course that was dealing with Wikidata specifically. And so in a sense, he gave us a really interesting view on the current project that he's running, which is Wiki Functions, and we talked about abstract Wikipedia and all that, but in essence, Denny is here wearing multiple hats, both as the person who, I would say, not only as the person who is responsible for Wikidata and now running, right? Denny is now the head of special projects at the Wikimedia Foundation and is leading the effort around abstract Wikipedia, Wiki Lambda, and Wiki Functions. But also he's just a long-time Wikimedian. So the questions you hear here are a mixture of just questions that the students had for Denny, either related to his previous project, Wikidata, or as a long-time Wikimedian, or related to the current projects that he's running. So just wanted to give that context. The third question that we have for you, Denny, comes from Danielle and Mayar. Both of them had almost the same question. And it goes like this: how do you feel the recent changes in the world regarding AI will influence Wikipedia and Wikimedians' work, especially as they become more advanced? How can we ensure a good collaborations between humans and machines? And I would say, in essence, in the interview, you spoke a lot about the dangers and the challenges, but Danielle writes, I feel that there could be also many advantages. Could you share a bit more? So it's really three questions. How will it affect AI? How can we ensure good collaborations between machines and humans? And what are some of the advantages that AI can have on our work? I'm going to paste it in the chat just that it's easier to follow.
I think the last year or so has led to really new capabilities that are not very well understood yet with the modern AI technology. And one of the big features is that we have now at our fingertips a technology that allows us to access natural language text in a programmatic way, which has barely not been really available before that. So that's something that is new, something that we couldn't do before. Not at this level of quality. The Wikimedia projects heavily depend on natural language text. Therefore, we can expect that this new capability of being able to access natural language text in a programmatic way will have massive implications on Wikipedia, both how we and the world use the textual content of the Wikipedia projects, but also in the way it is being written and maintained. We can expect a lot of new tools that make the maintenance of Wikipedia far more effective than currently. So we have, I think, about 55 million articles right now written in 300 languages. And we have about, I don't know, maybe 200,000 contributors working on this. So if you make the calculation, this would mean that each of them like has to shoulder about 250 articles. This is not the case. We know that there's most of the contributors don't take on this heavy. So there's a lot of text in Wikipedia, which is basically unmaintained, for example. And the only reason that so much of the text that we have is maintained is because over the years we have developed better and better tools to actually increase the efficiency of the contributors working on the text. Those new AI methods will become indispensable tools to to increase the efficiency of the community even further, to be able to maintain the content inside of the Wikipedia is better, and to ensure that the text stays correct and up to date. This is also where abstract Wikipedia comes in. One of the big issues with the new methods is that they are prone to hallucinating, and this is one vector where we hope that abstract Wikipedia will be helpful. I did expect those technologies to develop. I'm just surprised by the speed of the last few months in which they are in. I thought we would have a few more years before this basically develops to where we are now. But we don't, and that's actually great because those tools can be used in many, many different positive ways. So I'm very much looking forward to employ them. Already in abstract Wikipedia, we are planning for at least 2 or 3 places where we're going to use these technologies, where we're going to use the new language models in order to help humans to be more effective in using wiki functions and using abstract Wikipedia. The first question, I was answering mostly the third one about the advantages. So there's a ton of advantages. So if just imagine tools that check an article for inconsistencies, or tools that check whether the given references actually support the given claims. These are things that wouldn't have been possible without this technology and are now very close to doable. So let's come to the first question. How will it influence as they become more advanced? And this is a question where I want to say it's really, really difficult to give an answer because we don't know how they will continue to advance. We don't know if these technologies are already at the end of where they're going to be, or is this just the beginning of what we're seeing in development? We have seen massive development in the last few months. Can we project that this massive development will continue further, or do we need to expect a difference in quality of the next few developments in this area? And there's a big, we don't know on this level. We also understand that these technologies have the capability to deal really good with grammar and fluency of text, but they sometimes show that their understanding of the text, whatever that means, is not human-like and is different than what we would do. And this always runs the risk there that if we deploy them without oversight, that we might do massive damage to the content of the projects. So, and how will this advance? I don't know. Will they become more human-like? Maybe. Will they become just more available in more languages? That would be awesome. That would be really, really good. But we don't know how they will advance in the next few months or years. What I do know is that we will find many, many ways to actually use these technologies that we don't even anticipate yet. And things like, as I said, being able to check a reference, that already would be so incredibly useful to see that the given references in an article actually do support what is being said there. This would be a huge boon for Wikimedians to be able to maintain the text, to go, and maybe even something that starts reading external sources and starts contributing to Wikipedia, like making suggestions for contributions to Wikipedia. There's so many things. How can we ensure good collaboration between humans and machines? I think this question, I have often posed this question, but I think in reality, we are too much anthropomorphizing the machine in this case. We shouldn't forget that the machine at the current point is still a tool, and we don't really collaborate with tool. I don't, it's a thing of words, right? They don't have their own agenda. They don't have their own plans. Maybe yet, maybe as they are. So what this question is, how can we ensure good collaboration between humans and machines is basically the question about how is the usability of these new tools for us as contributors, as humans to work with them. So, and this is where I think actually to, now that the research results have hit really different in the last few months, I think now it's time for product people to jump in and discover how we can actually make these these advances in technology available to a lot of users, not just the contributors of Wikipedia, but also the readers of Wikipedia and so on. We have seen the first crop of new tools coming up, for example, Adobe, providing very powerful new methods for image manipulation and so on. I expect, we have seen that Google and Microsoft has been starting to announce new AI technology in good old tools like Word and Google Docs and so on. I think the next few months and even years will be extremely interesting in the way that how we productionize those AI tools that we have now developed, and which kind of new products, which classes of new products will appear and make available. I think they were just at the very beginning of a very interesting journey into the future. And this is all about this question, like how do we ensure that the good collaboration between humans and machine happens? How do we ensure that these new technologies are usable by a large number of people and make us and help us in achieving our goals?
Thanks so much. That was a long one because of the 3 questions. But I think a really natural follow-up is Shir's question. Shir, do you want to ask?
Yeah, so hey, Denny. I'm going to try and ask, and if I have some trouble, I'm going to ask Shani to help me. I have the question in front of me. So I saw the class with you and Shani, and I saw you talking about AI with a lot of fear. You said that you can talk to children and that you're gonna see children talking to AI, feeling like there's a real person talking in front of them, when actually some of the facts that they're gonna hear are completely false, and they're, as children, not gonna know that. And so I feel like my question is, do you regret that AI now exists for the young generation? And do you feel like there's going to be a place in time where AI can go hand in hand with Wikipedia and Wikidata in a way that can be safe and that we can use it without fear?
I don't regret that these technologies have been developed. I'm excited about them, seeing also the potential problems that they can have. But I think it's great that they are there, and I think that we will have a lot of interesting uses from that. In the history of humanity, we have again and again developed technologies that have potentially very negative side effects. I mean, most of us know how to drive I don't know, 1 or 2 ton ping of metal that can speed up to I don't know, 200 kilometers per hour, and it can cause a lot of damage if it's misused. And we seem to be okay with giving billions of people the ability to use that. I don't think AI is much different than that. And we will need to figure out how to make it safe. Safe enough for reasonable humans to use it. We will never be, I mean, in the end, computers are just as unsafe. You know, there are people who are misusing computers, who are doing very dangerous things with them, who and this is true for so many tools. AI is no different. Again, yet I don't believe that we are anywhere close to like actual super intelligence or whatever, and that we'd have to fear AI becoming some kind of AI overload. But I think those stories are still science fiction and will remain for a while. But with children, and not only children, but also with many adults, I think it is helpful that when we develop products, when we develop tools that they can use, that we consider their potential to navigate the output of these tools and to help them understand how to use them. If my kid reads a fantasy novel, I don't expect it to mix it up with reality too much. So we have to make sure that when they use AI tools, that they also understand the limitations, that they check the content. And this is the same thing, like for example, with social media, right? There's so much going on in our social media feeds, which might be untruth, which might be propaganda, which might be just plain good old ads trying to manipulate us. This will go into a form of overdrive with AI technology. We have shown that the last few years that we're not particularly well equipped to deal with this kind of misinformation on social media. But I still wouldn't suggest that we shut it all down. So it's a similar thing here. Maybe it will be, maybe there will be good places to regulate it. Maybe there will be good places to make sure that certain things don't happen. But I have no idea what these steps would be. This requires much more thought to put into it and much better understanding of the technologies. But in the end, to come back to your question, no, I don't regret those technologies. And I think that particularly our kids, and also actually all of you, I mean, you are a generation younger than me, all of you. So you'll be really, really quick in the uptake in order to actually discover the subtle cues in the text, to discover how to use these texts effectively and when to trust and not trust them. I trust you to learn how to use those technologies, and I trust you to wield the new tools that are being developed well. I'm happy to have follow-ups on this or any other questions too.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Next one is, oh, Yoni, did you want to have a quick follow-up?
Yes, hi, thank you, Danny. Do you think that maybe there is any solution to the hallucinations of the language models like ChatGPT and others? Or maybe the solution should be like it has to be validated from a solid database? That's my question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say this is an open research question. And I very much hope that there is a solution. I expect that we will find some solution which will be good enough at some point. I think we're not there yet. Validating it against a knowledge base is certainly a possibility, but to the best of my knowledge, basically every knowledge base available right now doesn't have the coverage, doesn't have enough, is too brittle basically to really cover everything that is being stated in by a language model. I think it would be a promising start, but it just won't take us far enough. We need more than that. And in fact, Abstract Wikipedia is one approach to achieve more in this direction by increasing the expressivity that current knowledge bases have, and therefore hopefully increasing the coverage that we can help LLMs with. Whether it will be sufficient, I don't know. I do think that we will need multiple approaches to the question of hallucination, and I hope that Abstract Wikipedia will be one significant effort in this direction. I don't know if it will be sufficient though. Ask
Thanks,
me again
Denny.
in a few years.
Yeah, thanks, Denny. The next question is by Fadi. Fadi, do you want to unmute and ask?
Yeah, of course. The idea of GenAI using Wikipedia and Wikidata is interesting, but also scary. Do you think there's come a time with PPL, with the trust AI, and we won't know where the info comes from and not know Wikidata or Wikipedia? And how will it affect the wiki, and will it still have a place?
This time has already come. It's already happening, right? We have seen smart people like lawyers using results from generative AI and submitting it to courts and getting into all kinds of trouble because of that. We have seen smart kids using it for writing their essays for schools and for colleges and so on. It's already happening, and this is not unexpected. We need to figure out how to deal with this kind of information, and we're just at the beginning of that. So yeah, the good thing is that society is robust enough to deal with this kind of experimentations, and if sometimes it goes wrong, well, we'll find ways to deal it. In both cases it got caught. In other cases it might not be caught. I mean, there will be bad things happening because of that too. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point, rather soon, we hear about stories, for example, of doctors using generative AI without sufficient oversight to suggest, for example, courses of treatment, and leading to negative effects for the patients because they haven't been vetted enough, which would be a pretty negative outcome from the whole thing. I wouldn't be surprised if AIs would be used for high-speed trading or whatever and cause losses of billions of dollars on certain markets. But all of these things are not new, right? I mean, we had previously such systems that have caused high losses on Wall Street or whatever. We had previously expert systems that have caused loss of life in medical treatment and so on.
Then maybe if I can fine-tune
Yes.
Fadi's question, I think what he's asking is about provenance and the references. Like we've talked in the interview about the fact that one piece that is currently missing from GenAI is knowing what the sources are, which is something that we're very much used to having in Wikipedia, right? In Wikipedia, a good article would be an article that we can check the references of and understand where the information comes from. I think what Fadi is asking is, do you think if that develops, if we actually get a GenAI that can tell us the references, will Wikipedia still be even relevant in Wikidata? Like, what is the place of these projects, considering that at some point we're assuming we will overcome the provenance and references issue?
I have little doubt about the relevance of Wikidata even in that world, because of actually cost reasons and remaining confidence reasons. So running an AI is actually pretty expensive, and running a knowledge graph is very cheap compared to running an AI. So I don't have much doubts about Wikidata. About Wikipedia, on the other side, it's more nuanced. And there I do find myself worried where the place of Wikipedia really will be in the future, given that we can just create maybe even trustworthy articles on the fly about basically any topic in the future.
Yeah,
How
you know,
much?
this is completely connected to, you know, Sam Altman was just at Tau campus. I don't know if some of you heard it, but he was on the stage saying how he's such a fan of Wikipedia, but for him, ChatGPT is actually replacing Wikipedia. And I'm like, how can you say that even, right? Because at the moment, it's completely not in a place where we can even compare. But I guess that's exactly what you're talking about, right? Like the moment in time where that can become an issue for us. This also connects to a question Ofik had about, do we even need wikis if, you know, if it comes to a point of maturity?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think yes, but there's also a lot of hope playing into this whole thing and a lot of ideology, because in the end, the Wikimedia projects have provided a unique place where a lot of people can contribute to the sum of all knowledge that hasn't been available before and hasn't been created in any other place so far. Every other space on the web today is basically either irrelevant or owned by a large corporate player or someone who wants to be a large corporate player. The Wikimedia projects are different in that way, and they have loftier aims. They aim to allow everyone to have a voice in the whole thing. I do see that there might be a completely different infrastructure where we have other ways for people to contribute their voices to the sum of knowledge, and then have AI summarize it in some way. It could be possible, but looking back at the history of the web on the last 30 years, Wikipedia happened only once. All the other projects were commercial enterprises, basically, or didn't fly. So I would be extremely worried that in anything that revolutionizes this aspect of the web, of the knowledge ecosystem, we would lose the one place where everyone can contribute to the sum of all knowledge. And that's one of the things that actually keep me up at night. I really don't have answers for that one, because I think Sam is right to call it out. I think Ofik's question does make a very good point about this, and we'll need to figure out how this will all fit together. But again, this is nothing that I'm worried about it right now. The generative AI is still far away from being trustworthy enough to actually make this step. But I do expect this something that can be fixed, which will be then lead to this problem.
Thanks for these questions. We have two last ones. One is actually, again, coming slightly from Ofik, who's here in class. Say hi, Ofik. Just raise your hand, okay? So Ofik is asking specifically about not just using, but actually integrating things like ChatGPT into Wiki, and to specifically not Wikipedia necessarily, but Wikidata, Wiki functions, etc. And can you say a bit more about, I know we've touched upon it a bit in the interview, but can you say something a bit more elaborate on that?
I hope to integrate it in several different ways. On the one side, using the generative technology that the new models provide in order to make suggestions for the contributors, to make it easier to contribute to wiki functions, to apps, Wikipedia, and so on. But I think even more impactful would be to use this technology in order to allow the readers to access the content in Wikidata, to access the content in wiki functions. So wiki functions will provide functions that can answer all kinds of questions. Wikidata has all this structured data, and one of the big challenges is always like, how do we get this potential knowledge into the hands of the actual readers? And this is something where I hope that these methods will actually be helpful, that we can use natural language inputs, natural language questions, and figure out how to answer them with wiki functions and Wikidata, and basically turn it into function calls, turn it into Sparkle queries that can then answer the questions of the user without the user even knowing about how it's being translated into all these things. That would be pretty amazing. But it will be a little bit of research work to actually figure out how exactly we do that. And anyone who's interested into figuring that out, I'd be happy to help with that and to support that work. I don't know how it will happen yet, but there's certainly a huge potential to make this happen. Looking forward very much to that.
Thanks much for that, Denny. And the last question is from Uswa. Uswa, say hi, just that Denny sees you. And Uswa asks, you've played an important role in the evolution of the wiki movement and working on cutting edge projects, being sort of an entrepreneur, at least in spirit, right? Creating new things. Do you have any tips for undergraduates like us, you know, just starting out our lives in this really weird era where everything is changing? What can you share from, you know, some words of wisdom from your experience?
If you ask my spouse, I have certainly not been an entrepreneur, and looking at my bank account, I have been not very particularly successful. But I've never been in for the money, which is my big excuse for this. So, but I
At
don't
least
know
an
if
entrepreneurial spirit, right? At least that.
I don't know if I am able yet to distill this. So one observation first. Yes, all the things seem to be changing right now, but to be honest, this looked like this also when I started my studies in the 90s. The internet seemed to be changing everything. The web has been out. Everything seems to be changed because of that. We were expecting everything to be different in a few years, and it actually did change a lot of things. The web had a huge effect on the world, right? But I think this might be something that is always there. If you look in history, you always find, oh wow, we are really at this momentous time when everything is different than it used to be. The end of the 19th century is actually famous for saying that they basically have figured science out. All the questions are answered. Well, and then a few things happened that actually broke the whole belief. But so yes, you live in exciting times, but everyone else before you did too. This is not a new thing. I think my advice will boil down to the typical platitudes. Believe in what you're doing. Be mindful of the past in the area that you're working in order to learn from mistakes that have happened before, because you certainly want to make new mistakes. You don't want to repeat the old mistakes of the past. But also don't be scared. Don't be scared to dream big, to think big, to want to change the world. I mean, a lot of these systems, particularly in in our area where we deal with computers and web systems are often worldwide. And that's okay. That's pretty awesome, actually, because you always have the story of impact. But also, don't be worried about learning from your own local experiences, from your own things that happen in your life, and to take from that. A lot of the motivation for Apps Wikipedia for me came from observing what is happening in the Croatian and Serbian Wikipedia and so on, which are very, very personal experiences for me. And I'm sure each of you have very important personal experiences that do translate to bigger pictures. And even if they don't, you don't have to save the whole world all the time. I mean, just work on things that make. There's a great saying in the open source movement, which is like, scratch your own itch. Do something that actually helps you with something, that deals with a specific problem that you have. And in many, many cases, it will actually translate to a bigger picture. Those will almost always turn out, if you do that well, it will almost always turn out to have much more impact than you expect to. When we started Wikidata, we certainly didn't expect that we will have 500,000 contributors. We didn't expect that all these thousands of institutions will be using it. This wasn't planned. There was absolutely, I mean, I was dreaming of it, but certainly didn't expect it. I always thought knowledge graphs are something for a very small number of geeks, and no one else would care too much. Fortunately, I wasn't right. And so I'm sorry, I'm just babbling. I don't have actually a distilled wisdom to share here. Certainly not in just like 2 or 3 minutes, but I'm trying my best.
No, that was great, and I think that was actually sound advice to be practical and focus your energy on things that are close to home, that that you actually need to solve, and that can lead to some big things that you didn't expect. So I think you did amazingly. And on that optimistic,
I'm sorry, I want to add one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
Each of us will have a unique view on the world and will have a unique combinations of talents. I studied, for example, computer science and philosophy, and this kind of conference always helped me. And together with my background, of basically which languages I speak and so on, each of us has this kind of combination. And the most interesting things happen always at the borders of where our skills from different areas come together. And it can be things you don't expect at first at all. It can be, maybe you have some martial arts skills that somehow tie into your computer science background, where you can get a novel view on things. It might be that some experience that you had in your life can create a new perspective on things that hasn't been available to the other people in that space, who might have all been, I don't know, white old males like me. All of us have a unique perspective on things, and I think by being honest and by being faithful to our perspective, we can contribute things that no one else would be able to. And this is where we can really, really be impactful and powerful with what we're doing.
Well, I'm at least inspired, and I hope you are too. Danny, that's a really, I would say, a great point to wrap up this session. And thank you so much for joining us today and from sharing your experience and thoughts and your, the challenges, and just being very open about the fact that we don't know everything and we're all just exploring. And that's it. I know that Denny is available. If you have additional questions, you can write him. And on that optimistic note, again, thank you so much for joining us today and for doing the interview. We really, really appreciate it. It's been a privilege and an honor. And thank you, students, for participating and engaging with us. And I'll see you next week for wrapping up the course, and we'll be in touch. Denny, thank you.
Thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.